What is the worst case of special snowflake syndrome you have ever seen? Buddy of mine swore up and down that his dad invented paper football. Whenever we tried to play he'd say crap like that was never in the original rules and basically ruined the game. My father invented the question mark. I work for a hotel and we had a guy who came in twice a year or so. He claimed to be someone important in the music recording industry. He would pull up in a nice town car, stay in a nice suite and generally make sure everyone knew he was supposed to be some kind of big deal. He would tell the doorman and front desk to be very discreet if some music celebrity showed up to see him. He would tell the phone operators to hold all his calls except if Beyonce's people call. Things like that. Only problem is, no one ever showed up for him. No one ever called. He would have his suite set up with conference tables and amenities for big meetings that no one ever showed up for. We googled him and couldn't find anything about him. So we figure he likes to pretend to be some big shot for his vacations. Pretty sad. Maybe the doormen were just really discreet. That's why you didn't know. Cop here. Went to a call for a 7-year-old chasing kids around the neighborhood with 2 kitchen knives in his hands. One of the kids' mothers called. I arrive and make contact with the woman who called. She said she saw the kid chasing her son. So she went outside, grabbed the kid, and screamed at him to drop the knives. I found the kid with the knives and his mother. His mom screamed at me, saying that the woman who called had no reason to grab her son and yell at him. She said he wasn't going to hurt anyone and he was just playing. She said her son has ADHD and being touched by strangers is a trigger. She demanded that I charge the woman who grabbed her son. I was training a girl in fast food, handed her a cleaning cloth, and she immediately hands it back. Oh, sorry, I don't actually do any cleaning. She didn't last long. Oh, sorry, I don't actually do any cleaning. Oh, I'm sorry, you don't actually work here anymore. I was in charge of line wrangling for an event, a free event I might add, when a woman comes up to one of my security staff and explains that her son is autistic and freaking out because he saw someone cut in line and can't deal with it. The security guy explains he's sorry, but they can't be everywhere at every place. But my son is autistic. So the security guy comes to Central and asks how to handle it. The woman is real mad we don't have a way to keep people from cutting in line. But no one witnessed it except the parent and the kid. And when asked to point them out, says I don't know. One of those girls pointing to a group of teenagers. When asked what we should do about it, she said to throw them all out. No, lady, we're not going to do that. So we got accused of hating and segregating autistic kids. But that's as far as she took it, a public admonishment. I feel sorry for that child. Using autism as an excuse will only make it worse. I'm glad I finally have a name to put to the illness that affects a lot of the military wives in my area. I work at a library beside the base and have to deal with a lot of wives to admirals, captains, SEALs, etc. A military wife came in trying to check out books on a car that had an existing fine of $140 of late fees and processing fees. She handed me her civilian ID and said that her military status should excuse it. I laughed and said, sorry, we only take cash or check, not husband's ranks. Our military calls this a dependopotamus. Worked in an airport. Had passengers come and ask me why they didn't get a call to go through security. They were just waiting outside for the company to call each and every passenger from a 747 for boarding. At the busiest time of the day, 4-5 hours of planes taking off every 10 minutes. In 2 years I got that one 3 or 4 times. Sometimes after departure time. I'm doing this job now. Jeez, the stuff you have to deal with sometimes. People who say stupid questions do not exist obviously have never worked in an airport. No, the plane will not wait for you. Working as a manager at a movie theater in college, I was training a girl to work in the concession stand. The concession stand was where everyone started. If you weren't a complete idiot, they moved you into the ticket box or an usher. We had a new trainee that was a real piece of work. Didn't want to do any cleaning in fear of breaking nails. Disappeared in the middle of the evening rush for a smoke break. Bulls like that. I asked her to go to the back, put some ice in a bucket and bring it up to fill the soda station. She told me that's a man's job and that I should do it. I left the station and went to talk to the GM to let him know that this girl was completely useless. He went down to ask her if she could fill the ice stations and she stuck to her guns that it was a man's responsibility. He said that he will keep that in mind when he hires a person for her now open position. It took her about 30 seconds to realize that he just fired her. 30 seconds seems pretty fast for a girl like her. I went to high school with a girl who thought her voice was God's gift to earth, yet even in middle school couldn't break into the top choir. Each year she'd get her choir assignment and throw a huge fit that she wasn't in the top choir and go on to not make it past the first round of any competition that the choir went to. And finally her senior year she made it to the top choir, because seniors weren't allowed in the lower groups, and decided this was the sign she needed that this was what her life was about. So she went to a school known for its choir program, not in the program but destined to break in, left that to go join a touring company, the understudy that never made the production, and finally moved to Nashville to find her big break. She's still there and I believe just put out her 4th self-released album while blasting our town on social media for not supporting a rising star like herself. I had a girlfriend in high school whose parents made her into a snowflake. She was fairly normal, but not really bright, as in had 3 wrecks in 1 year because she couldn't listen to music while driving. She would zone out and drive off the road. Parents would just get her another car. Her 4th car had the radio removed. Worst is when she graduated HS and they bribed her not to go to college. They gave her a new Jaguar, still no radio, and paid all her expenses so she could work somewhere that she would meet a wealthy man to marry, take care of her. She was very attractive, but again not super bright, so maybe they thought this was the only option available to her? Arranged marriages are still sort of common among the top tier of income. While I was in college I volunteered at a nature sanctuary leading birdwatching groups. It was a true sanctuary and so did not allow dogs at all. Thankfully there was a public park within walking distance and an off-leash dog park within a short drive. It also didn't allow bikes on the trails. Thankfully the entire surrounding area is extremely bike friendly and has one of the best and longest dedicated bike trails in the country, but people still broke the rules all the time. My worst encounter was with a man and his young daughter, maybe 8 or 9 years old. I was leading my group over a narrow floating walkway over the lake, but the man and his daughter were blocking the way with their bikes and a big dog. I walked up to them and politely reminded the father about the sanctuary's no bike, no dog rules. He completely flipped his crap. He started yelling at me and asked if we can't ride or take our dog here. Where the heck are we supposed to go? I told him about the multiple parks and trails around us that he could use instead. He told me to go to heck and said he'd ride where he dang well pleased. He then started ranting about the sanctuary allowing freaking wheelchairs to roll over the walkways, so why couldn't he bring his bike, and how we couldn't tell him or his family what to do. Meanwhile his poor daughter is standing there looking incredibly uncomfortable, and my birdwatching group, all sweet old retirees, are getting nervous. I actually had to take my group back to shore to wait while the man wound down and finally decided to leave, but not before throwing out a few more curses and flipping the bird. This girl needs a really good recommendation letter for her upcoming grad school application and comes to me begging for an internship at my company. We don't normally have interns, but we create an internship position specifically for her. After working for us for 2 weeks, we offer to pay her for the internship even though it isn't legally required in this country. She takes 2 weeks, during which time she's working, to come up with a vague guesstimate of what she'd like to be paid. She asks for a starting hourly rate more than twice what her manager is being paid. She takes another week to agree to be paid something reasonable, but high for a college student. She wants to get paid for the whole 5 weeks she's been with us even though she was asked to keep a clear timesheet and didn't. While we are still discussing this, she refuses to run a simple errand because it's not the sort of thing she expected to be doing when coming to work for a company like this. In the internship position that was specifically created for her on the grounds that it would be nothing more than gopher with a title. We would have fired her, but before we got the chance she sent in a resignation letter as a PDF in pink Comic Sans with my name spelled wrong. Really hoping she still asks for that recommendation letter. A local lawyer would repeatedly come into the store where I worked. Every week without fail he would demand a discount because the product he was buying didn't look fresh. B. We were out of whatever he had come to buy. Or C. He had misread the price and the real price was making him angry. It wasn't unusual to have to stop what you were doing and bake him a couple of fresh baguettes at 7 p.m. At which point he would demand a discount because all of the baguettes that had been baked that morning were discounted. Dude also had a strange antipathy for our birthday cakes. He would come in with his children, get them to pick out an elaborate cake, fail to order it, then come in pee off that there were no identical cakes in the display case. Of course, this was always the store's fault. He would then demand that someone make him the requisite cake but at the price of the cheaper display cakes, plus a discount for his trouble. If the stars aligned and someone actually had the time to make his cake, there was a 50% chance that he would be back later with an empty box, complaining that the cake hadn't been fresh and he wanted a full discount, plus free cake the next time. I assume that he would pull this with the other departments too. God knows how much money it cost the store to retain this loyal customer. A girl I knew in high school thought everything in the world revolved around her, that her problems were the worst in the world and everyone should cry for her when she broke a nail. This became most evident when a few of us were chatting about life, and this girl went on and on about how sad she was because the new guy at school hadn't approached her and asked her out even though she totally walked by his locker, and how come he didn't notice her. A moment later, one of the other girls opened up about how her parents had been fighting a lot lately and she was really scared that they were going to get divorced and she felt like it was partly her fault and she was crying herself to sleep every night because she couldn't take the guilt of her parents' breakup. Before I could respond, the special Snowflake gave her a condescending smile and said, "Well, I think my heart hurts worse." There was one I saw on Tumblr, a girl who basically identifies as some kind of animal. She was lamenting how for her, as a hamster kin or some crap, it was okay, but at Halloween her friend who identified as a cat must really struggle and be offended by all the people who dress up as cats, up and called it a form of blackface. I have to believe it was satire or someone trolling, but if it's real I might punch someone. I used to work at a pizza place that served beer and wine, like a lot of pizza places do, and one day I was working behind the bar serving beers and whatnot and a young guy comes in and orders a beer. I asked him for it of course and he hands me a military ID. He's 20 years old. I tell him I can't serve him. The conversation went something like this. Not exactly, I can't remember the whole ordeal 100%. I'm on leave before I go out on a deployment. You can't show a little patriotism and just let it slide. I'm sorry man, but I'd lose my job if I did. So you're not going to give a guy who protects your freaking country a beer because you'd lose your job? After a back and forth for a bit he finally left in a huff. I don't really agree with the legal drinking age, but Jesus, you're not above the law because you're in the military. Come on, show a little patriotism by breaking the laws of your country. At a theme park in Calgary I was with some friends standing in line to get on a train and this one lady was sitting on a bench talking to a kid who worked there. She was very obviously talking down to him and was asking him what time the boat left. It was an old-fashioned steamboat, and he was telling her that the times are posted near the docks. And she's all like, "I don't want to walk all the way over there. I want you to bring me a pamphlet with the times on it." I half expected her to call him boy. The poor kid looked kinda scared and said he'd find out for her. So he left her there and she was talking to her family who was standing in line for the train and they kept asking her to stand with them and she keeps going, "No, you stand there for me. I don't wait in lines." Woo wow. Who are you again? I remember once in school I was talking with a friend in class about a video game. The girl next to him said that when she was young she witnessed a shooting and would prefer I not talk about things like that in front of her because it brings back those memories. I explained the game I was referring to was Diablo 2 and that there aren't any guns in that game. She decides that this doesn't matter and that since she associates video games with guns I still shouldn't talk about it in front of her. I didn't know what to say to that, so after a few minutes of silence I brushed off my befuddlement and started talking to my friend again about Diablo. So she got up and moved desks, which she should have done in the first place right before not butting into my conversion. Here's a story I once posted in Art Alice from retail. I worked for a test prep company. We do prep classes, private tutoring, etc. This story is about Michelle, who was our client for quite some time. She originally came to us for a GMAT prep class, business school admissions test, but wasn't happy with her progress. In fact, her scores didn't improve at all, despite attending every class and taking every practice test we had. So she went back and forth with one of the reps many times trying to figure out what she wanted to do. She repeated the GMAT course once, and after that, she was out of options. She'd have to pay in full if she wants to take the course again. So she came into the office one day, and I overheard this conversation with one of our reps, L,M. So I've been talking with my father a lot. We agreed that if I'm going to go back to school, it should be something more worthwhile, you know? So I'm going to do medical school. What do you have for MCAT classes? I see. So, I'm not sure if you're aware, but the MCAT is very heavy in science content. You were a business major. Did you take any science classes? Any medical prereqs? No, nothing like that. Did you take physics, biology, chemistry? I took a bio course. I never took physics or chemistry at all. I'm just concerned that you'll be way behind. Content wise. We can let you borrow some of our course materials to check it out. With a wave of her hand, I'm not worried about it. My dad's a doctor. Needless to say, the MCAT class didn't work out great for her. Got into a convo with a girl claiming the genetic lottery and being a perfect specimen for all mankind, while simultaneously being extremely shallow and stating she'll marry rich and never have to work. I'm a third generation sheet metal worker. I had a guy, first day on my job site, refused to carry some 18 inches round pipe up 3 flights of stairs. He was black and claimed I was being a racist and that he doesn't do donkey work. Once he said that, I flipped my crap. My grandfather, father and myself have been doing this our whole lives and have never once been a fricking donkey. I laid him off the next day. Great feeling. The butthole deserved it. I work at a vet clinic and we had one girl come in and start working. She seemed okay, but there were a few instances where she thought she was better than us. On her third day, she was corrected for a small mistake by one of my co-workers. Most people would react by saying whoops sorry, but instead she immediately went to my boss, red-faced and in tears. My boss was on the phone talking with a client when she was interrupted by some B saying I was yelled at and I work too hard for this and other entitled crap. My boss looked at her and told her to leave. The look on her face after she realized that throwing a hissy fit was so satisfying. A friend's brother has the worst case of special snowflake syndrome I have ever witnessed. He periodically refers to himself as a demon, the devil, posts endless selfies of himself with OMG so ugly no wonder I'm single in order to get compliments from fat chicks. Does the super edgy angry atheist thing constantly. But that's not even the worst. No, the worst special snowflake thing this chode does. He quotes himself on Facebook. He will seriously post something that he thinks is brilliantly clever, and then attribute it to himself. I'm not even joking. One time it looked like this. This douchebag. Goddamn mother, this douchebag. He quoted himself saying goddamn mother like it was some brilliant statement. Why? I'm going to start doing that now. It's gonna annoy the pee out of people. You Max Trollbert. The girl who was the ex-girlfriend of my ex-boyfriend's little brother. She was always talking about how hard her life was, how get parents treated her, etc. Now, this wasn't the problem. I was fine with her venting. But every time you started to talk about something else, she would try to steer the conversation back to her. One time I was talking about how much fun I had playing paintball and she immediately chimed in, stating that she preferred dagger fighting and wouldn't stop talking about it. She also believed in ghosts and thought she was something better because she was in some kind of VIP fan group of a band I was into a couple of years back. And she would lie constantly, stating that she wrote song texts for said band. Basically, she had the intelligence of 20 meters of field path, the charisma of a piece of toast, and looked like a cross between a mole and a dead fish stuck in some random gothic cloths, and still thought she was a hot piece of butt. I like paintball. I prefer dagger fighting. I don't think special snowflake syndrome quite describes this case. I work at a pharmacy and the general rule is when you receive a prescription that was faxed you fill it that same day. The city where the pharmacy is generally populated by low-income blue-collar Latino families who are incredibly nice despite the language barrier, but occasionally we will have customers outside the average, 5% of the time. This particular night a woman comes in and cuts the long line, demanding that she deserves to be helped first because she can actually speak English unlike these other spics. After being told to go back to the line she refuses to move, so I go and help her just to get her out of the pharmacy faster. Later that night she calls me close asking if we are playing some sick joke on her. Apparently her prescription said promised time 09/11 on it and she felt attacked by our pharmacy and that we were all sick people. I tried to tell her that her prescription was sent in on 09/11 by her doctor, so we filled it on that date. But she wouldn't have it. Inevitably, after almost 15 minutes of saying the same thing, I dropped my professional demeanor and said, okay fine whatever, and hung up on her and would hang up on her every time she called back. She then called corporate on us and they sucked her dong and gave us all warnings for being unprofessional. My biggest fantasy is to dip her meds in a pile of crap and sell them to her. Used to have a job in the entertainment industry where I dealt with a lot of celebrities. Justin Bieber was such a C. He would only talk through his security. I literally had a full conversation with him through his muscle. CCC. I work for a video game company. A couple of months ago, one of our employees got a letter from a local teenager, 13, expressing interest in doing a job shadow with us because he loves our game and has an interest in video games. Great. I contacted him and he passed me off to his mom after a couple of emails, and we set him up to come in for an afternoon to hang out. I figured we were doing the kid a favor. Cool. He comes in, is an awkward, nerdy kid, but he has a blast, goes home. Great. 2 days later, I get another email from his mom, saying that he had a great time and can't wait to come back. I respond and basically say that we loved having him, but are going through some changes in the studio, which is true, and, unfortunately, won't be able to have him back anytime soon, but we'll keep him in mind for the future. Basically, my programming guys had fun with him for a few hours, but he was mostly a distraction from them doing actual work and can't do any work for us, so having him here more than once is pointless. I was hoping that she'd, get that. Nope. I get another email from her the next morning, wanting to know what changes are happening. That's confidential. And what I mean by can't have him back anytime soon and will keep him in mind for the future, and saying that he'll be crushed by this news. I'm working on a way to respond to her while keeping it customer service friendly because he is one of our customers. Don't respond. Anyone who has half a brain will understand that your workplace isn't his playground and you are not his schoolmate buddies. Talk to your superiors about the situation and have them approve not sending an email back. That way, if she complains, if you take my advice, you do not get in trouble. A coworker went through a volunteer firefighter training and proudly displays a generic fire department sticker from Walmart on his truck. He never even spent a day volunteering. He got caught speeding and told the cop, I guess this fire department sticker means nothing to you. When the cop asked what department he worked for, he replied none and got a $150 ticket. On World of Warcraft I have a guild. There was one chick inside who when she joined immediately whispered to me about how the rank system saying that she was a newbie, new to the guild, was insulting and she was offended. I wanted to please my members so I changed it for her. Later on she went on about how she wanted my guild to become revolved around Dragonkin, RP realm, and she was actually a dragon. As time progressed she tried to convince anyone she met she was scary and sadistic. Tried to scare off any of the people who joined the guild by being super edgy. She explained later that she was 12. Suddenly it all made sense. A customer actually started crying. No joke, because an item cost $2 more than what she thought, and she was already buying more than $100 worth of stuff. I know, it's about the principle of the matter, but come on. A customer at a different store left in tears because she couldn't use a $5 off coupon to pay for a $1.65 soda. and get the $3.35 difference back in cash. It's my birthday, and all I wanted was a soda. Yet another customer cried because she couldn't find the one particular credit card that she wanted to pay with. Her wallet was loaded with other cards, checks, and cash. Her husband finally convinced her to pay for everything with cash, so I could get to the other customers, and then stand aside while she looked for the card. She found it, I refunded all of the items, and then rang them back up so she could pay with that one card. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.